Radio Cairo. What's going on? It's live. And that's the road. Live on the road.
Hello everybody over there and welcome to a new edition of Life on the Road, brought to you by the European service of Radio Cairo on FM 95.4. Today my guest is Dr. Fayza Haikal, Professor of Egyptology at the American University in Cairo. Actually, we are concerned with an event which takes place every year at Temple of Abu Simbel. So we have an exclusive telephone interview with Dr. Fayza Haikal, Professor of Egyptology at the American University in Cairo. Dr. Fayza, welcome to Radio Cairo and thanks for joining us. Would you tell us about that event which takes place at Temple of Abu Simbel?
In the month of February, the world, usually the touristic world more than the Egyptian, is interested by a phenomena which has been diffused very largely in the recent years. You can say maybe since 20 years. This is the phenomena which we notice in the Temple of Abu Simbel, the great temple that Ramses II built very close to the Egyptian borders on the north of the second cataract of the Nile. The phenomena that we are talking about happens twice a year, and before we discuss it, we have to know that the temple of Abu Simbel is a very, very special temple in Egypt because instead of being built in stone, it is hewn in the rock of the mountains along the Nile. So that will explain to you, maybe, I hope, why this phenomenon is so important and why the Egyptians themselves devised the temple and the plan of the temple and its orientation in such a way so that the rays of the sun god would penetrate inside the temple and lit the sanctuary or the innermost sanctuary where the statue of the main gods of Egypt were seated together with Ramses II.
بين رسبت مدوت.
Dr. Fayza Haikal, we'd like to know more about the temple itself.
This temple, firstly, is absolutely humongous in dimensions, whether in its height, in the size of the statue, or in its depth inside the mountain. As it is, the sanctuary is at the very end of it, in the east, and it shows. There is a series of halls before reaching the sanctuary, with pillars, with statues of Ramses II, and with decoration on the walls representing not only religious scene but also his most important battles, namely the battle of Kadesh, which he fought against the Hittites, and other less well-known battles. The temple was built in the 13th century before Christ, around 1,200 and some years before Christ. And as I say, it's a very, very important temple from the point of view of architecture and as well as of culture and religion. In this temple, there is also a very important stela, which is outside of the temple, That is to say, the slab of stone, which is outside of the temple, inside the mountain. It's hewn inside the mountain. And it records the first peace treaty that is known in history between the Egyptians and the Hittites. And it's a very important peace treaty because these were the two great powers of the region. And they fought together against each other at some point. And none of them really came out of the battle victorious. So they realized that their powers were equal, and instead of wasting their time fighting, they decided to make a peace agreement. And this peace agreement has in it many of the points that we find now in the Geneva Declaration, by which prisoners of war have to be treated properly and eventually exchanged, and that kind of thing, which is for the time was very avant-garde, if I can say it this way.
Ershawat hapati sednut Sauti pai en Miriam Petarti pirsat erha Mitefayet what? Said it. Said it. Non se daus.
Concerning the secret of the Egyptian picture writing, we know that the ancient Egyptians used to adapt to different script to write down their own language. So there are many scripts that were used in ancient Egypt. So according to the scripts, we like to know a lot about the secret of the entrance of sun rays inside the temple.
This happens twice a year, usually in around the 20th of October and around the 20th of February. It can be one day earlier or one day later, because the position of the Earth is a little bit tilted towards the sun, and it allows for the rays to have a better penetration of the sanctuary. These dates have been considered by some people as crowning of the date of the coronation of Ramses II and the date of his birth. But we have no evidence for that. It's, of course, there must have been some reason why they selected these dates, or they selected this moment when the sun could enter into the temple, but we have no written evidence or archaeological evidence that indicates that these are the birthday and the coronation day of Ramses II. So the main argument is to see how the Egyptian could adapt a hewn temple, a temple hewn in the rock, to their ideas. And by their ideas, I'm thinking here about their conception of the gods of Egypt, and how his gods represented in statues, including Ramses II, was deified even during his lifetime. The idea in other temples where the statues are in the shrine but movable, you can take them out of the sanctuary. In these other temples, every new year, the statues were taken to the roof of the temple in order to receive the rays of the sun god. Because the rays of the sun god would provide them with new energy the new cycle of life which they would need in order to receive the ritual in the temple. The ritual was made for them on a daily basis in the temple. However, in order to receive it, they have to be reactivated, regenerated by the rays of the sun god every year. In the case of Abu Simbel, the statues being hewn in the rock, it was impossible to take them away and to bring them to the sun god. Therefore, the Egyptians, with a genius really very remarkable, managed to get the sun gods to the statues instead of the other way around. So the statues were indeed based in the sun in the rays of the sun, and regenerated twice a year rather than only once a year, because they may have not stayed long enough because the sun was moving faster than when, of course, you have portable statues that you are putting on the roof of a temple. So that might have been one of the reasons why they cared so much about fixing the orientation of the temple in such a way so that the rays of the sun reach the sanctuary where the statues are. But this is a conception, firstly, of the religion, which explains that everything that exists has a life cycle, and at the end of the life cycle, it dies. And according to their religion, only the Creator God will stay forever. So that is one side of the story. The other side of the story, I would say, is not only the religious idea, but the practicality of their engineers and the genius of the engineers who oriented the temple in such a way and managed to capture the sun rays as they wish to do. And this, of course, reflects on their knowledge not only of architecture but also of astronomy. Astronomy was extremely important in Egypt, and most of the Egyptian monuments from the pyramids onwards, all the religious monuments, were oriented based on the stars. They had to respond to something in the sky, and the stars would give them the orientation, the north, the south, the east, and the west, and they would work on these bases.
Actually, ancient Egyptians are the best example for all generations. Good manners and devotion to Egypt are among the best characteristics of pharaohs, in addition to great lessons derived from their lives. I think we have a special chance to dig deeper in our history and know it more. Dr. Fayza Haikal, Professor of Egyptology at the American University in Cairo, many thanks for your time.
Life on the Road with Mona Hosney.